A New York City point guard will give up his girl and his chain before he give up his dribble. Yeah. They were calling me a young Mozart.
And he was just smooth, you know what I mean? It was like string music.
New York! New York! Praise be the orchestrators, the maestros of the tempo, the ones who made the pavement more precious. From Brooklyn to Left Rack, from Far Rock to Blacktop to Uptown to the BX, nobody want to guard the point. The point guard in basketball is the floor general. To be a New York City point guard, you must have toughness.
They push you, they foul you, you can't call no foul.
We went at each other's heads.
Everybody got shook.
Handle!
No girl can guard me. I dribble the air out the ball if you wanted me to.
And showmanship. What?
When you from New York and you shake somebody and the crowd go, that's like 5-6 points in our brain.
It wasn't just move, it was your sneakers, it was your shorts, it was your haircut. The whole mentality was like, somebody did it like this, I'm gonna do it this much iller.
Y'all New York dudes is crazy.
When I say legendary,
A move is named after him.
What we were seeing was cultural resilience.
We've revolutionized this game with our influence.
New York City playground basketball blew up on a global scale.
Hip-hop, fashion, combined together.
style, swag, charisma.
It's New York City at its finest.
Make it here, anywhere else is just practice. Paradise compared to a paradise. Yo, I swear there's something in the water.
We don't talk enough about how much punishment a person faces when they enter an American prison. We do not need a system that incarcerates 2.2 million people. Oftentimes, the social cost of those long sentences are counterproductive to public safety and to justice.
We shouldn't think about criminal punishment as only the moment that the punishment is being meted out. That punishment actually carries with a person throughout the rest of their lives.
If Americans knew how much punishment just 1 year of imprisonment is, I think they would understand that oftentimes our punishment is far too great. Every day in an American prison, the message implicitly and explicitly is, you are a piece of garbage.
We've been conditioned to think that our harm is done, therefore we throw someone in a cage or in a prison, and then the harm has been healed. Healing cannot happen in a jail cell or in a prison cell in a 6 by 8 foot space.
The moment that you are charged with a crime and you enter into the jail system, that you're no longer a human being, and that anything that we do to you or things that we don't do for you is justified because you're less than a human being.
The great irony of the American criminal justice system is oftentimes the longer someone spends in corrections, the least likely they are to come out and be a corrected, law-abiding, and successful citizen. Prisons are incredibly dangerous and violent. It's not the place that people normally go to get personal growth. When someone comes up and yells in your face, you yell louder. When someone throws a punch at you, you throw too. We often throw out the $35,000 a year figure, which is how much it costs a state or the federal government to house one person in prison for 1 year. But that's not the true cost, and it doesn't measure the social cost, the cost of missed income, but also missed earnings for a family if the person who's in prison is a parent or a spouse. There are hundreds of thousands of collateral consequences of a felony conviction.
If we're going by what prisons are supposed to do, or people are supposed to reflect and be penitent, it's just about restoring people to their wholeness and not breaking them apart and making them feel like they're nothing. Everyone is capable of redemption and growth and change.
My 2 brothers were murdered on 9/11.
I live every single day without my father.
FBI files show the Saudi government was involved.
This golf tournament is taking place 50 miles from ground zero.
It's disgusting.
Worse than a slap in the face.
You're taking money from an evil regime.
These are 3,000 Americans that were killed on American soil.
How much money to turn your back on your own country?
200 million? Sure. I'll forget about their atrocities.
I'm never gonna forget, never gonna forgive the golfers for taking this blood money.
The controversial Live Golf League kicked off another tournament today, this one at the Trump Golf Course in Bedminster, New Jersey.
But family of those killed on 9/11 have been protesting the Saudi-funded golf league because of the country's alleged ties to the attacks on September 11th. CBS 2's Nick Calloway has been speaking with those families. He's live in Bedminster with more. Nick.
Yeah, dozens of those families were here today to peacefully protest this golf tournament. They say that the golfers and the former president are getting rich off blood money.
The utter disgusting stench of that blood money is sure to follow you all the rest of your days.
9/11 families and survivors gathered a few miles from the golf course, less than 50 miles from ground zero.
We're standing here in the backyard of where 750 people were turned to dust. And the reason we're doing that is because we need to speak out about what the kingdom did.
Last September, an FBI report showed evidence that 2 Saudi officials provided support to at least 2 of the 9/11 terrorists. 15 of the 19 9/11 hijackers were Saudi nationals. But the other day, former President Donald Trump had this to say.
Well, nobody's gotten to the bottom of 9/11, unfortunately.
Many of the 9/11 families were once Trump supporters. Eddie Bracken lost his 36-year-old sister in the attacks. He said he's disappointed in the former president.
He knows exactly what the Saudis did and why they did it. It's an act of war on America. You know it happened, and you'll never be voted in again by me or any of my family members.
The Saudi-funded Live Golf has been poaching PGA stars with huge contracts, some worth hundreds of millions of dollars. In a statement, Live said in part, while some may not agree, we believe golf is a force for good around the world. That offers little solace to Juliet Scalzo.
You know, I was 4.5 when my father was murdered.
Her dad was a firefighter who died saving lives on 9/11. She had this message for the golfers and the former president.
My father wasn't the type of person who could be bought. And I just want you to know that if you were there that day, my father would have run in to save you without a second thought.
And some of those families told me that the best way Americans can protest this golf league right now is to simply not watch it and let it fail. We are live in Bedminster, New Jersey. Nick Calloway, CBS 2 News.
One of the most exciting scientific findings of the past half-century has been the discovery of widespread trophic cascades. A trophic cascade is an ecological process which starts at the top of the food chain and tumbles all the way down to the bottom. And the classic example is what happened in the Yellowstone National Park in the United States when wolves were reintroduced in 1995. Now, we all know that wolves kill various species of animals, but perhaps we're slightly less aware that they give life to many others. Before the wolves turned up, they'd been absent for 70 years, that the numbers of deer, because there was nothing to hunt them, had built up in the Yellowstone Park, and despite efforts by humans to control them, they'd managed to reduce much of the vegetation there to almost nothing. They'd just grazed it away. But as soon as the wolves arrived, even though they were few in number, they started to have the most remarkable effects. First, of course, they killed some of the deer, but that wasn't the major thing. Much more significantly, they radically changed the behavior of the deer. The deer started avoiding certain parts of the park, the places where they could be trapped most easily, particularly the valleys and the gorges. And immediately those places started to regenerate. In some areas, the height of the trees quintupled in just 6 years. Bare valley sides quickly became forests of aspen and willow and cottonwood. And as soon as that happened, the birds started moving in. The number of songbirds and migratory birds started to increase greatly. The number of beavers started to increase because beavers like to eat the trees. And beavers, like wolves, are ecosystem engineers. They create niches for other species. And the dams they built in the rivers provided habitats for otters and muskrats and ducks and fish and reptiles and amphibians. The wolves killed coyotes, and as a result of that, the number of rabbits and mice began to rise, which meant more hawks, more weasels, more foxes, more badgers. Ravens and bald eagles came down to feed on the carrion that the wolves had left. Bears fed on it too, and their population began to rise as well, partly also because there were more berries growing on the regenerating shrubs. And the bears reinforced the impact of the wolves by killing some of the calves of the deer. But here's where it gets really interesting. The wolves changed the behavior of the rivers. They began to meander less. There was less erosion. The channels narrowed, more pools formed, more riffle sections. And the reason was that the regenerating forests stabilized the banks so that they collapsed less often, so that the rivers became more fixed in their course. Similarly, by driving the deer out of some places and the vegetation recovering on the valley sides, there was less soil erosion because the vegetation stabilized that as well. So the wolves, small in number, transformed not just the ecosystem of the Yellowstone National Park, this huge area of land, but also its physical geography.
Can you see me? How close do we need to get? And what will we make of each other when we get there? Excuse me. Thank you. Speed's just part of my personality. Where Good Soul Sphere is about my inappropriateness in the world. Behind you. Excuse me. Thank you. And the inappropriateness of the world for me as a queer disabled woman of color. Thank you. It's full speed ahead for me. When I first started using a wheelchair, someone would push me when I got tired. I hated the way they would hang back. I hated feeling powerless to change the choices they made in the name of safety or public politeness. On your right! On your right! On the right, thank you. I never hit people, and I never apologize. Yep, excuse me. When we shot this scene, people thought we faked it, green screened it. They didn't understand that this actually is how I move.
Meanwhile, in the Rynor report tonight, Senator Alex Padilla was back in California urging Congress to pass his Housing for All Act. It would invest more than $530 billion over a 10-year period. ABC 10's Morgan Rynor covers all things politics. She is live in the newsroom tonight. And Morgan, he says this money could especially help homeless veterans.
Chris, he did speak about homeless veterans and how California has the highest number of vets living on the streets. His solution, however, while more about building housing in general, does touch on the veteran issue.
San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria wants you to know this is not just a California issue.
Make no mistake, this is not a San Diego issue. This is not a California issue. This is a national issue.
But U.S. Senator Alex Padilla added that it is worse in the Golden State.
The rate of homelessness in California in particular has increased larger than most states. And that, by the way, includes 11,000 veterans who experience homelessness in California on any given night.
So what are they asking for? The Federal Housing for All Act.
This bill is a comprehensive plan with a vision to end homelessness and secure affordable housing for all across America. And it's a plan that works from the bottom up. We know that every community is different.
He said this new affordable housing community, St. Teresa of Calcutta Village, is the perfect example of a private-public partnership he'd like to see more of. The project designated 20% of its units to veterans.
It is also our job to better serve America's veterans.
California accounts for 12% of the U.S. population, but is home to 28% of the country's homeless veterans. Dr. Rajni Shakar Brown is the VP of the National Coalition on Homelessness. She said states like Florida have reduced homelessness by focusing on veterans.
There's been a lot of investment working with really HUD federal, veteran voucher programs, looking at really dollars invested into veteran support services, making sure that veterans have access to get into long-term housing, rental housing. And so that's really been an area where it has, really decreased homelessness.
Padilla added if fixing homelessness were easy, Chris, it would be done already.
So true. It's something we're going to be following. It is no quick fix. Morgan, thank you.
Starting in the 19th century, the United States federal government set up over 350 Native American boarding schools. Indigenous children were forcibly separated from their families and brought to these schools, where they were completely cut off from their culture, history, and languages. The children were made to wear American-style uniforms and given new English-language names. The primary objective of these schools was assimilation into white Christian culture. The state of Nevada had 3 such schools, including the Stewart Indian School in Carson City. When he was just 8 years old, Frank Quinn was removed from Yerington Paiute tribal land and brought to Stewart. Feeling the undeniable urge to return to his family, Quinn courageously escaped the school and trekked 50 miles alone through the unforgiving Great Basin environment to reunite with his parents. After surviving the journey, he was recaptured and brought back to the school, only to escape 2 more times before being allowed to remain at his ancestral home. Quinn's great-grandson, Koo Stevens, is well aware of his great-grandfather's exploits and bravery. He is also a gifted distance runner, having recently won gold medals in national high school track championships. Recent discoveries of unmarked mass graves at boarding schools in North America has inspired him to honor the memory of his great-grandfather and raise awareness as to the atrocities suffered by many at the boarding schools. So he came up with the idea of replicating Quinn's journey from Stewart back to Yerington and invited all those that would care to join him. He is calling his idea the Remembrance Run.
I would like anybody who's watching this to go ahead and imagine themselves being as young as 8 years old and put yourselves in their shoes to be persecuted for who you are, whatever religion, whatever ethnicity, wherever you are. Just imagine you being prosecuted for being yourself, being who you are, your blood, your family, and to have to run or walk 50 miles over hills, deserts, fend off predators, and just try to survive, even to make that journey without, food or water, any kind of substance.
My name is Kutevin Stevens. I'm from the Urrington Paiute tribe, which is 50 miles that way. Yeah, I know those 50 miles pretty well about now. We care about the Paiutes, we care about Washus, we care about all the Native Americans, especially the ones who had to deal with boarding schools personally. You ask any Native American around here, they had some tie or relation to a boarding school. So they truly know firsthand the kind of evil that was delivered through boarding schools and the kind of assimilation that was, taking place. And to this day, people don't know. They come and see the cemetery, and that really hit them. It was really getting real for them. Many of them cried, and it was good to see that my history and my people were being recognized. If it was 100 years ago, that could have been me. That easily could have been me. I could have been stolen away from my family without my parents' permission, because that's what happens. And I could have been taken to a place like this, and I could have been beaten, I could have been abused, I could have been murdered, I could have been raped. And people don't know that.
It never really crossed my mind about doing it solo. Then it grew into a larger idea, bigger idea of healing for all people and understanding and realizing just how far some Native Americans had to go to be with their families, the lengths, the distance, the hardships. And I wanted to share that with people.
ಸಣ್ಣಕ್ಕಿದ್ದಾಗ ನಾವು ಹಿಂಗೆ ಅವ್ರ ಕಟ್ಗಿಗೆ ಬಿಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ತಾಯಿನವ್ರು ಅದು ಇದು ಮರಲ್ಲ ಹಿಂಗೆ ನೋಡ್ತೆ ಕಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ರೀ ಬಿಸಿಲು ಯಾರೆಲ್ಲ ನಿಲ್ವ ನಿಂತ್ರಿಲ್ಲ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಹಿಂಗೆ ನಮಗೆ ಕಾಡಬೇಕು. ತುಳಸಿ ಗೋವಿಂದ ಗೌಡ, ನಮ್ಮ ಹಾಲಕ್ಕಿ ಗೌಡರು. ತಾಯಿ ನಂಗೊಂದು 25 ವರ್ಷ ಆಗುತ್ತಾನೆ. ನಾನು ಒಂದು 20-30 ಮಂದಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಹೋದರು, ನಾನು ಹೋದೆ. ಆಗ ನಮಗೆ 1 ಕಾಲು ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಕೊಡೋದಾಗಿತ್ತು. 8 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ 50 ವರ್ಷ ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಯ್ತು ನಂಗೆ. 60 ಹೌದು. ಗಿಡ ಬೆಳೆಸೋದು ಬೆಳೆಸಿದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಒಳ್ಳೆಯದು. ನಮ್ಗೆ ಕಾಡಂದ್ರೆ ಹೊನ್ನೆ, ಮೊತ್ತಿ, ಕಿಂದಳು, ಬೊಗ್ರಿ, ಹುಳಿಸೆ ಇಂಥ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಎಲೆ ತರ್ಕ ಬೀಳ್ತಿದ್ವು ಹೊಲಕ್ಕೆ ಹಾಕೋಕೆ. ಬ್ಯಾಡಂದು ಬಿಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾವ ಗಿಡರೂ ನೆಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕಾಡು ಬೆಳೆಸ್ಬೇಕು. ತಾಯಿ ಮರ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗ ಮರಕ್ಕೆ ಕೆಳಗೂ ಬೀಳ್ತಿದ್ವು ಬೀಜ, ಮರಕ್ಕೂ ಆಗ್ತಿದ್ವು. ಶಾಗೋನಿ ತರ್ದಾರೆ ಬೀಜ, ಶಾಗೋನಿ ಭಾಳ ಕೆಲಸ ಆಗ್ತಿದ್ವು. ಒಂದು ಬೀಜ ಮರನ ತಂದು ಹಿತ್ತಲು ಮಾಡಿ ಹಿತ್ತಲಲ್ಲಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದು ಸಾಧಾರಣ 20-25 ದಿವಸ ಕುಟ್ಟು ಬರ್ತಿದ್ವು. ಆಗ ಗಿಡ ಆದರೆ ಇಟ್ಟಿಟ್ಟು ಅದು ಗಿಡ ಎಗ್ದು ಹಿಂಗೆ ಕಿತ್ತಿ ಬುಡ ತುರಿ ಕಡ್ದು ಕಾಡಿಗೆ ಸಾಕೋಗೈತೆ. ನನ್ನ ಮಗ, ನನ್ನ ಸೊಸೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಕಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೆ ಗಾಳಿ ಇಲ್ಲ, ತಂಪಿಲ್ಲ, ಕುಳ್ಳಕ್ಕಾಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಕಾಡು ಇರಲೇಬೇಕು ನಮಗೆ. ನಮ್ಗೆ ಕಾಡಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಭಾಳ ಖುಷಿ.
aren't used to like Muslim girls playing sports.
Who's killing this dude? Oh, hey, ooh.
I was making a left-hand layup like everybody could do, you know? It was very weird to me because I thought no one really like thought like that, but I feel like no one's really surprised anymore that girls can play.
Jamad's story went viral after making this video. Look at this. Doing all of that wearing the traditional Muslim hijab.
I do camps for young girls around the country. It being different for us to play sports, it was hard for us to really get together and play basketball. Once I realized like girls actually do want to play basketball, they just need the extra push. That's when I realized I can be the force for those girls. I feel like when I was younger, there was definitely people not knowing that like why I would wear certain things that I would wear, or if like I was actually like good. I knew that I had to be good. I transferred here my sophomore year and I loved playing college in Boston. Like the social media, that's when I first started. And for us to do the tournament here as my like going away from the college, it's like really nice. When I first started doing social media, the people who would follow me were all people who were Somali and Muslim. The majority of them come to the camps.
The reason that we got into basketball, it was because we weren't allowed to play with like the boys or anything. This gave us a chance to like actually show our parents, you know, girls deserve more spotlight because we don't get enough.
I knew Jamad before. I knew like of her on Instagram and stuff like that. We were like, oh my God, you know, like finally somebody's doing it for us. She's like our big sister.
She's encouraged me to do what I want to do and help young girls. Traveling to all these other states, seeing all these other girls, is more than we ever thought, and hopefully more to come.
It's like what every Somali girl was wishing to see. She's a good role model.
Our moms like didn't let us play basketball because, you know, we're girls and we're supposed to be in the house. We finally can tell our moms like, look where basketball took us. Like, it's not for nothing, you know?
A couple of the moms, they flew out with their girls to come here. They're proud of their girls. It's just like a major sign that everything's like really evolving and changing. It's good, it's a big step forward. The impact that these other young girls could have once they get older and like they start realizing more things, it's gonna be interesting to see. It's gonna be like bigger and better than anything. Just to bring them together and like create those friendships too is nice. So the hopes for Jamad basketball camps is definitely to make an impact to girls who are in different countries around the world and who don't have the opportunity to play sports or basketball. My name is Jamad Fiin. I'm a hooper and I do camps for young girls around the country.
Our story this week is about a young Texan named Reality Winner. She was charged with espionage a few years ago for leaking a top-secret government document to the news media. She told us that she felt like she was a whistleblower who was exposing wrongdoing. She received the longest sentence ever imposed against someone for leaking information to the media, at least in the civilian side of things. And she was recently released from prison, which gave us the opportunity to sit down and hear her side of the story.
When you heard the very first time the word espionage, what did you think?
When I heard the charge, I thought, okay, well, there's still a legal defense against this. Usually in espionage, there's country A and country B, and someone is giving something of country A's to country B. So I thought, well, we still have a chance.
This is 2017, during the investigation into whether Russia interfered with the U.S. election in 2016. In 2017, the president was saying, well, we don't know who did that. Maybe it was China, maybe it was Russia, maybe it was somebody else. But the National Security Agency did know. It had put together a top-secret report that showed that Russian military intelligence had started a campaign to hack into U.S. voter registration rolls. So Reality Winner saw this in the course of the work that she was doing at the NSA and realized that they knew the truth, but the White House wasn't telling the truth.
You felt that the public was being lied to and you were one of the only ones who knew what the truth was?
The public was being lied to.
And because of your position, you could see that?
Yes.
You understood that the document was classified top secret?
I did. I understood.
Reality Winner was prosecuted under the Espionage Act, which was written during World War I back in 1917. The act essentially says that American secrets cannot be passed to anyone who is not authorized to receive them. Now, that's almost always in the history of the act been used against spies, but the Justice Department began using the Espionage Act against people who considered themselves to be whistleblowers, people who were exposing secrets because they felt they were uncovering government wrongdoing. These cases tend to be quite complicated, and the debate around them is essentially this. There are those who say that government employees who swear an oath to keep the country's secrets must do that in all cases, that conscience doesn't matter. However, there have been many cases over the years, the Pentagon Papers that exposed the lying about Vietnam is one of them, in which a person decided that conscience mattered more than the oath that they took to keep the secrets. When the government is hiding wrongdoing behind classification, they have felt that it was their responsibility to inform the public.
The prosecutors said you did egregious harm to the national security of the United States. Was that your intent?
It was never my intent to hurt anyone or cause any damage.
Your intent was what?
My only intent was that maybe one person could restore the foundation of truth and integrity in a really tumultuous year.
वृक्षारोपण कार्यक्रम 2022। पेड़ पौधे धरती का श्रृंगार हैं। अगर मानव समाज को दीर्घ एवं स्वस्थ जीवन चाहिए तो धरती की इस समृद्ध विरासत का संरक्षण करना होगा। हम अपनी भौतिक साज सज्जा और संसाधनों के लिए पेड़ काटते हैं। ये स्वार्थपूर्ण रवैया सिर्फ अपने लिए ही नहीं बल्कि धरती के सभी प्राणियों के लिए हानिकारक सिद्ध हुआ है, क्योंकि इसके दुष्परिणाम अति गर्मी, अति बरसात और मौसम में अनावश्यक बदलाव के रूप में स्पष्टतः दिख रहे हैं। इन बदलावों से बचने का केवल एक ही उपाय है कि हम पुनः अधिक से अधिक पेड़ लगाकर धरती के कर्ज को चुकाएं। मानव उत्थान सेवा समिति श्री सतपाल जी महाराज की प्रेरणा से विगत अनेकों वर्षों से संपूर्ण भारत में हजारों की संख्या में पेड़ लगाकर पर्यावरण बचाने का कार्य कर रही है। इस वर्ष भी हमारी संस्था ने लगभग पूरे भारत में अपने 224 आश्रमों द्वारा 24 विभिन्न राज्यों में 77,749 पेड़ लगाकर पर्यावरण की सुरक्षा में महत्वपूर्ण योगदान दिया है। वृक्षों से जीवन है, वृक्ष हैं तो हम हैं।